As you can see, Mr. Dorjay is also dressed in traditional attire. And can we have a big round of applause for that as well, please? Promoting culture is also about bringing your culture to the table. Yeah. So we were talking about adventure tourism for a sustainable future, and one of the biggest things is when we go on these adventure treks, we see a lot of waste or a lot of equipment that is used, and it becomes difficult often to sustain the whole trek because there's so much of garbage that's collected in these kind of treks. One big example would be, of course, the Everest climb itself. We just saw Mr. Sujay Das's pictures of Everest, but the number of climbers that we have now climbing Mount Everest and the amount of equipment they carry with them, and then they dispose of these oxygen cylinders, and there's a lot of things that they dispose on the way, that they've had to have expeditions now just doing cleanup sessions on Everest, going up and getting back a lot of this. How do we ensure that we don't litter the environment that way? There are a lot of treks that happen in the Ladakh region, so maybe Dorjay, you can start with that. How can we ensure that we leave no footprints?
Good afternoon to everyone. Thanks for having us on this dais. So yes, we have been operating trekking in different part of the Himalayas, especially Ladakh and Kashmir, since 4 decades. And I'm the second generation looking forward for hosting many more to come. So talking about the waste, we have a lot of lessons from Ladakh. Ladakh itself was a case study since past many decades. When Ladakh was open for tourism in late 80s, we had initially we had a very good, educated, I would say, or informed travelers who respected, who had a good respect towards Mother Nature, and we had a very good lessons from those travelers. And as a people from Himalayas, especially Ladakh, we had this innate nature for respect for the nature. The Ladakh itself, the people of Ladakh, we had what you call it. Sorry, can I speak later? So, what I was trying to say is, the people of Ladakh, the innate nature was as such that. Can I speak after this?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. I'll take this over to Raj. Yeah.
Thank you. It's an excellent question which has been going around for, I think, now almost half a century. It was only when the initial challenge was to make adventure and expeditions popular. That was one of the biggest. This one, and we had adventure clubs across the country, in our country, outside also, and then we had the communities who were in the Himalayas and other places, who served the people who came for the mountaineering expeditions and other things. So in the process, what had happened is, for us in the mountains, mountains have become, it was always a culture, as a part of the faith. It was always a part of the faith. But for the people who came to climb them, it was something, which they challenged actually. And they thought that they could conquer nature. That was the basic way. But with time, things changed, and people thought, we cannot conquer nature. We have to live with nature, and nature has to live with us. So, from the mentality of conquering, it went into a mentality of, just being immersed into different parts of the nature. So that changed the complete attitude of the, adventure seekers, mostly mountaineers across the world. And this is when the consciousness came in. And they felt, the kind of leftovers from every expedition, from every trip, or every tour, or every expedition that we take into any delicate area, means concern to to nature because there we hardly have any population. It is not a place where people go every day. So it is our duty, if we are taking something with us, to bring it back with us, which was very necessary. So, leave no footprints was one of the biggest things that came up as a part of the, adventure tourism. So that I would say is the conscious coming into adventure tourism. Previously, it was happening, but without the conscious. So as the conscious came in, now you find from local to the global level people who are undertaking such kinds of expeditions, everyone is aware that environment is a priority and we cannot leave traces.
Right, right. Raj, if I was to come to you, in the river cruises, again, you're dealing with a different kind of problem there because most of our rivers in India, we have a lot of pollution already in them, which is, from the various cities, the effluents are flowing into the rivers, except if you go further north towards the source of the river, it's cleaner, but as you come downstream, you get more and more effluents added in them. How do you ensure, one, that your cruise boats that you have on the river are sustainable, that nothing goes into the river from the boat? And two, is there something that you're working with any local bodies to see if something can be done for cleaning up these rivers?
I'm personally very conscious about sustainability. Not the word sustainability, the word responsible tourism. These are trends which come and go, and we're talking about it. But the thing is, most of these things are basically, if you have it, that you want to keep your environment clean and pristine, then you just do these things naturally that it doesn't destroy our environment. So, I'll address the river issue, but I just wanted to add a little bit to the mountain trekking issues. I've trekked a lot. I've been to Ladakh in the 70s, Stoke-Angry Trek, those areas and all. So there, or even the Everest Base Camp, then the other one, there's another one, Annapurna, Kanchenjunga. So all these areas. See, one of the things when you go into the Himalayas, every ecosystem has a carrying capacity to which it can sustain. And it may seem harsh, but it's not harsh. If you are able to somehow, if you are regulated, regulate does not mean that you stop the people from going. Regulate would mean that X amount of people go on a certain day or per day. You regulate the amount of people who go there and do the tracking and that sort of thing. Like anything else, like a train or a plane, you do your bookings. And there are only certain people who can go in that sort of situation. So I think in adventure tourism or in any aspect, we need to think how to do it. And how to then, people who can't go, okay, just rather than concentrating, there are other areas. Himalayas is a vast area, but so they can sort of go into other areas. So one of the things I think is avoiding is to how to diversify those treks into the other areas rather than to follow in the same way. And also to regulate it, that's one way of looking at it. The second way is, of course, today the people are much, much more aware of sustainability or other things, but still many a times educating the participants is very important from the beginning of a trek or that sort of situation. So I would not go more into that. I'll come to the river cruising. When you say about river cruising, and what we are doing is that on our ships, basically what happens is that the pollution in the rivers, what it is, it's something which is a manifestation of 100 years of using the rivers as a source of putting the waste and everything, as if it's a self-cleaning thing in our minds. Like just put it there, it'll go somewhere. We Indians, I'm including, I have one of the things we think is we have a very good sense of personal hygiene. When I say personal hygiene, we will have a bath in the morning, we'll have a bath in the evening, we will clean ourselves, that sort of thing. But when it comes to a matter of communal hygiene, you just throw the dirt or anything just away on the other side, thinking that that's not mine. So it's the same thing which happens with the rivers, that okay, in my village, my town, I'm just putting it, it'll go somewhere else, someone else will take it. So that's something which is there. Now for that, of course, the government of India has had many programs, like Namami Gange, to clean the rivers. There are thousands of crores of which have been spent. There have been these filtration plants which are STP plants along the rivers. Even in Varanasi, even still, there are certain nalas or in other places which go there with the dirty water. So the government is doing, but it's a legacy of 100 years. It can't be. So that is something which is continuous. Of course, it is, now there's much more awareness and things are, we're talking about it. And there is some action which is happening to reduce it. So that's one aspect of it when it comes to the river systems. When it comes to our systems, in our ships, our river ships, we have what we call the state-of-the-art STP systems which are installed. STP is sewage treatment plants. So nothing actually goes into the river. Everything is kind of treated there and only with clean water. There are certain standards to which we have to adhere. And that's how it goes to. So that is what it is. That's one way of doing it. The second thing is when you say of other, so that's for the other, And then we have, as I was saying, our own water filtration plants. Those water filtration plants, we take the river water, it's all clean, RO basis, utilized, and then it goes treated, and that's how it is. So nothing is actually going which is polluting the rivers in that way. The second thing is that the waste we have, which would be from the food waste, we have found a very unusual system. If I say that to you, probably you'll laugh about it, but it's something which you have to kind of be realistic, and you have to try to do what you can do. So we segregate. First of all, we don't use single-use plastic. We try to avoid it, so that's one aspect of it. But the other thing is that we separate out what is like vegetables or food stuff and other things and all. In some of the cities, we know there are farmers, there are people who raise pigs. So we actually keep it. We have spaces in the ship which is air conditioned. So we tie it up and keep it all in the ship, basically air conditions. So it's not degrading, it's not smelling or anything. And at certain places we know it's taken and given to those farmers. This is it as free. So they use it for feeding their animals and all. So ours is a very small percentage. So we are able to handle it. It would not be possible if it was really a big thing. Our ships are small. River ships are small. They have a capacity of like 30 cabins, 35 cabins maximum, so 60, 70. Unlike the ocean-going ships, which have thousands and thousands of people. That is the difference. When you say of river cruise ships, you think of ocean-going. That's the mental thing. So river cruising ships are different, and the reason they're different is because in the rivers, there's limited water. So you can't have a heavy ship which will go down. The second thing is you also have to go under the bridges, so you can't build a high ship. The ships we have got a draft of, say, 1.3, 1.4 meters. They're flat bottoms, so they can go in 5 meters of water. So this way, the capacity is very small comparatively. So there is so the impact, we can keep it to the minimum or no impact at all the places. So that's how we are able to kind of manage it. And then there are, again, designated places where we dispose that. So it's not like anywhere we'll throw it in the river. That's the thing. Also, we are working with the Ministry of Shipping and the state governments that wherever we have jetties, they put up a sort of collection for the waste. And so they've not yet done it, but they probably, if we keep on persisting, they'll do it. Presently, we are doing it all ourselves. So that's what it is.
Yeah, thanks, Raj. Yeah, that was a very insightful answer. Coming back to trekking, I think a lot of organized trek operators, I think one of the things they do tell every individual on the trek is to carry a garbage collection pouch with you, right? And whatever you're using on the trek, you put it back in your pouch and you bring it back to the start of your trek. Similarly with water, instead of carrying plastic bottles along on the trek, there are ways of carrying, you get these straws which filter water on the go, and most of your treks in the mountain regions, you have a lot of relatively clean drinking water where you can just fill it in that bottle and drink from that. But a lot of this is not known. So how do we popularize this kind of thing and make sure that, adventure tourists are responsible when they go on these treks? Toby.
Collecting of water on a trek, we all carry water bottles. We carry water bottles to the office. You carry water bottles to college. That's why my point about the plastic water bottles this morning in the auditorium. On treks, you've referred to these filters, the charcoal filters that you can carry in the bottles. They're available, but they're not cheap. They're nearly all imported. As far as I know, there isn't a local version of it yet. If there is, I haven't seen it. So they're not, it's an urban, something that's available in the cities. You can get it from trekking stores in Delhi and wherever. Although I was impressed by some of the kit they were displaying outside here, climbing kit and rope, and I'm sure they have sources for these bottles. But they're not cheap. So if you are students going into the mountains, you're not going to spend 1,500 rupees on a water bottle. You're going to spend 5,000 rupees on a pair of boots. I mean, it's your priorities, or a sleeping bag, or whatever. So how do you prioritize things? That's one. The other thing on treks, and also on wildlife trips, there's inevitably times when you need to go behind a boulder or go behind a bush. In India, you're not allowed to stop anywhere, but in practice, people do stop because there are sort of emergency reasons. In Sri Lanka, there are parks where I also work. There's some sort of designated areas unofficially. We make sure that no guest leaves any tissue paper behind. They have, if they want to pee and they want to go out and they want to use paper, they have to take it out of the park with them. And it's the same on treks. There are people who run treks in this country that never let anyone leave any tissue paper on the trail. But there are many exceptions to that where people just go behind and squat and leave everything behind. They don't bury things, or they don't carry it out. So that's a tricky issue, but it can be done. There's one sort of anecdotal story which you mentioned Everest, the Everest Base Camp, which is today, the highest trash landfill site on the planet. In 1979, I was working with a company called Mountain Travel India, but the head office was in Kathmandu, and we ran a trek with the Sierra Club only to collect rubbish from so it was a commercially run trek for people from California who paid to go on it to collect trash from Everest Base Camp. But there were no biodegradable plastics in those days, so we had to take jute, gunny bags, which were quite heavy. So we took those in, and I can't remember how many hundreds of bags we filled, but we were there for 5 days at 17,000 feet, quite literally shoveling shit into gunny bags, which were then ported out down to the plains where they could be recycled or buried or burnt. And 45 years ago, we were still burning things, which ones rather would never do today, but we did do it then. But what I'm trying to say is, it's not a new problem. It's a problem we were conscious of 45 years ago, and we tried to come up with a rather primitive system, which is just go in and collect the stuff and carry it out. Right. Today, unfortunately, it's full of not just oxygen cylinders and beds, but as the Khumbu icefall melts, human bodies are coming out of the ice. So it's a pretty grim place now.
That's right. Yeah.
something I remembered when Tony was saying about the things for how to keep the environment. See, on our ships, what we do is that it's a small thing, but even the tissue papers which are there, they're biodegradable. So you don't have to worry about that sort of situation. That's one aspect of it. And the other thing is that some time back we imported from China, very reasonable cost, these aluminum bottles. So people can fill from the big jars, which are displayed there for their own use. So those are small things, but which help. So we, as a company, we have had this policy of how to make things work without feeling that it's sustainable or that sort of thing, because that's the right thing to do. So as long as the leaders who are there think that way, without sustainability, responsible tourism, all these things, but saying, hey, this is what we should do, this is the correct thing to do. I think that's the way to move forward and to educate the clients who are there.
Right. Yeah, Toby. Yes, on.
This is it's neither exclusive, sort of elitist, or exclusive to sort of the top tier of companies. I mean, there are lots of companies that provide water bottles to their guests, and in cars, transporters do this, and can be done across the country, because you can actually get RO water almost anywhere in the country nowadays. I mean, every town, every hotel, restaurant can provide it, safe drinking water. So the landscape has changed. There's a tendency to think that it costs money to save the environment. It needn't. And as Raj mentioned, it starts at home. It's our civic sense is as important as our personal hygiene.
Right. I just want to quickly take this ahead because we have only about 5-6 minutes left.
I just wanted to add, we was just talking about Ladakh, and there should be a constant innovation and education from government department, the tourism department, and the associations. As in, we take the case of Stockangri, one of the most beautiful peak, which is now closed forever because that community now they don't need tourists anymore because there was an infrastructure lackage. There was mere just 3 toilets for thousands of travelers every day to that peak, and the other season the human waste could just flood into the Stock village, and then there was no education at all. So I think it's the role of the tourism department, the associations and the tour operators to educate, and this is what we need to do when we open new destinations also in future.
Right.
Just to add to everything on a bigger question, like when you say Financial Express doing it, how do you know that your finances are monitored, and how do you know that finances are good or bad? How do you do it usually? What do you do? Because we have the financial expert also who was giving us this. How do you do it usually?
I mean, to know if your finances are healthy, you look at your balance sheet, or you have a regulator who.
So what you do is audit.
Audit.
So it is very important that as you do your financial audit, each and every company, each and every destination should do the waste audit. What is coming in and what is going out, be it a destination, be it not a tourist destination, it doesn't matter. But the audit is a must. If we don't do an audit on a regular basis, because human interference is beyond nature. So it is extremely necessary that we have an audit system in place which says that, we are on the right track or we are on the wrong track. Otherwise, we will keep on discussing about it, we will keep on coming up with systems, but then we do not know how long that system will be working, how long it will not be working, until and unless we have an audit system in place. So it is time and right time for the, at least the tourism industry to understand that we need to put in audit systems even for our waste management and for our, keeping our places clean.
Okay. One quick last question I have to my panelists here is on, how do you, the impact that we have on the environment, when I say not just the physical environment. I'm also talking about the flora and the fauna. Now, I've seen this happening in Ladakh a lot. You have this lovely wild animal called the marmot, which looks very cute, but keep it at a distance. But what's happened over the last few years is that tourists have started feeding these marmots, and they have become like our rhesus monkeys, coming up to the car for food. And that completely changes the entire environment. Today it's the marmot, tomorrow it's the wild ass, then it's going to be the deer. So how do we ensure that there's some kind of regulation on this? How do we stop that?
I think we need tourist policing also in the vast regions like Ladakh or any destinations in India, because constantly when there is a huge influx of tourists, and now we can see people driving their cars and bikes into the lakes, knowing not.
Yes, and that is the environmental impact of
they think that there is nothing, but there are a lot of flora and fauna even on the desert, and people feeding fast food and chips to the marmots, and the very next season we have seen a lot of marmots just lying around because they are not coping with the things that tourists are feeding them. So I think, we have constantly requested the department that we need a little bit of tourist policing also in such destinations, which is very important.
Yeah. Toby, you want to add that?
I mean, Ladakh is one obvious example of how it's going wrong. It's the same in a way people in parks expecting to see tigers, when they get tigers, wanting to take selfies. I've seen, and also with wild elephants and other animals, I've seen people with their backs to the animals taking selfies. They're not looking at the animal. They have no respect for the animal. It's just for that Instagram moment for auntie back home or whoever it's being shared for. And there have been cases of people taking selfies or using selfie sticks, which are banned, luckily, in parks, but those bans are often ignored, where people have fallen out of the vehicle onto the ground in front of a tiger. And there was one person who dropped a child in front of a tiger, trying to take a photograph of the child and the tiger behind, in Maharashtra. So how do you educate people? One is you stand them all up in a row outside before they go into the park and give them a lecture and make them sign a document. And if they violate that document, they get kicked out. But who's going to enforce something? That's a very severe and a rather silly thing to suggest because it's impractical. But you're going to have to do something dramatic.
As Toby is saying, you have to do something dramatic. And I can give you an example. Recently Bombay High Court, perhaps you might have read, has passed a law not to feed the pigeons. Okay?
Yes.
So there is a regulation which is coming. Now the thing is, what happens is that there's a further study which has been done by BNHS, Bombay Naturalistic Society, and the pigeon droppings which go down after they dry up, and then after that there are certain kind of, they've got certain kind of things which come out, which can be real, which can give really
lung disease.
Yeah, lung disease and other things. So basically what will happen eventually, or what's already happening, is that the judicial intervention has started coming into this. And what it will need, actually what it needs is, if you want your marmots to be not fed, is a judicial intervention. That means going to your local judicial bodies, whatever it is, and just say, look, this is what's happening, that's the situation. It is the department, it's the forest department's responsibility to ensure this is not done. And once that judicial sort of intervention comes, certainly there could be certain laws or that sort of situation, or they will force people not to do it, and things can change. So that's the only way, I think.
Right.
I mean, where I live in Delhi, I'm very fortunate. I live in a small, quiet corner in the center of Delhi, and there's a wood behind. Now, the people around, all the do-gooders in the in the colony, feed the dogs on street corners, and they now, but they're so lazy and middle class now, they employ dog feeders to come to collect food from the house and take them to deposit at the corners of the colony. So what we're now getting are packs of dogs. And recently there was judicial intervention on that in Delhi. But it's not just the dogs that are coming in. It's the macaques that are coming from the woods behind. And they use the roofs as a sort of highway. They come and get the food. And now they're predating on or playing with children. So you can't send a child out to play in front of your house because it's a dead end, so it's very safe. We've always used to do that.
Yeah.
Now, because the monkeys will come and play with your child. We're creating problems for ourselves. Not just in the wild, not just in adventure, but in our own urban spaces.
Raj, quickly, and then we'll wind up.
It's such a good way, we are creating sanctuaries in our cities around our houses. We're allowing the wildlife to come with us and being compassionate enough, jokes apart.
Home delivery in every way.
Yeah, jokes apart. What happens is, in a country like India, sometimes it becomes very difficult because, your religion says that you should be kind to anyone and everyone that you see. And then you find God in everything that you see around. And then you try to help them by, making them forget their habits of eating from the wild and doing things on their own and making them secondary earners like all of us, instead of becoming the primary earners and looking for food. So it is, the change in mentality has to come from the school level. It is not going to happen overnight. So these are things which we have to bring in as an education at the schools, at the primary, be it government, be it, big public schools or whatever it is. We need to make this curriculum as a part of the education system, which we had for a very long time. We had this nature clubs and all these things in schools, but it should also go down to the very simple village primary schools. This is where, with education, the mindset is going to change, and we need to work on it very sincerely and on an SOS basis.
Right. And of course, as they say, education is important, and that's where it all starts. And I hope Meghalaya as a state also continues to, sustain sustainable tourism, adventure tourism here. I mean, I don't want those pictures to not be true in a few years from now. It's just wonderful to see such crystal clear water and clear lakes. Coming from a city like Delhi, clean water is a luxury, believe me. And on that note, I'd like to thank all my panelists here for this wonderful session. I hope everybody in the audience had some good takeaways, and since you all are the future of adventure tourism in the state, I hope you've got some new ideas and to take this into a nice sustainable future. On that note, thank you all for joining me. Thank you.